The story begins with a boy standing on a rooftop, contemplating whether he can end his life by jumping. As the cars rush by on the rainy night below, he edges closer to the outer side of the railing. Just as he releases one hand, ready to leap, another boy swiftly grabs his other hand, preventing him from falling. The boy saves him at the border between life and death. As time passes, the boy asks if he's ready to transform. The response comes that it's already past 8. Sion agrees and stands up, telling the man to hurry since he has midterms next week. The invisible man reassures him, calling him a nerd, and promises to be quick. As Sion descends the stairs, the invisible voice asks about the man he's about to face and how he is. Sion explains that the guy brags about having a black belt in Taekwondo, but he adds that he's lying about everything, including claiming to be a third Dan. The invisible man reassures Sion, saying that there's nothing special about the target. However, Sion insists that he should be careful, pointing out that their opponent has been in many fights. The invisible man interrupts, confident that he can knock the guy out with a single blow. Sion then takes out some hair gel and applies it to his hair to transform. The invisible man he was speaking to turns out to be a version of himself with a different personality. He transforms himself, confident that his day will be good once again. A smirk crosses his face as he wonders whether he should begin his mission. Meanwhile, the man who is about to be Sion's target that night finds it absurd that his name has surfaced on social media. His friend confirms the news, showing him a post from the Wolf account claiming that the next target will be him. Shocked, the man snatches the phone to verify, confirming that it is indeed about him. He hands the phone back to his friend, asking about Wolf's true identity. His friend seems unaware, only knowing that Wolf created his account 3 to 4 months ago under the nickname Wolf. He explains that Wolf uploads a picture of a different gang member each week, followed by proof of their defeat shortly after. While everyone knows about Wolf, no one truly understands who he is. As his friend reveals that Wolf's target the previous week was Jung Il from Sangyong High, he asks if he's familiar with Jung Il. The man targeted for the night is shocked upon hearing the name and asks if his friend is referring to Jung Il Kong. When his friend confirms, he adds that while Jung Il may look like an easy target, he probably isn't. His friend then shows a picture of the injured Jung Il from Wolf's account. The man smirks after confirming that it's really Jung Il. The man sits back, smirking comfortably, commenting that Wolf is just an attention seeker who probably chose the wrong target that night, claiming he could easily knock Wolf out. His moment of confidence is interrupted when another customer laughs loudly in the cafe. Turning around, he spots a man chatting and laughing with a girl. The man, seated with 2 girls at the cafe, is none other than Sion in his second personality. As Sion enjoys his time with the girls, the man targeted for the night stands up, frustrated and jealous. He watches Sion casually enjoying himself with 2 girls, while he himself is stuck sitting with his male friends. As he moves, his friends ask where he's going, only to learn that he's simply heading to the bathroom. As the man uses the public bathroom, Sion walks in and stands next to him, singing as he urinates. Annoyed by the singing, the man glares at Sion in frustration. In response, Sion casually excuses himself and mentions that one of the women Sion had been talking to is interested in him. As the man asks if the girl is truly interested in him, Sion reassures him, saying that the man is exactly her type. He then asks if the man wants to talk to her. When the man agrees, Sion suggests they head to the parking lot, where he'll tell the girl to meet him shortly. Sion also mentions that he's interested in another girl, but the girl who likes the man kept interrupting their conversation. Eventually, she admitted she had her eyes on him. Sion adds that if the man goes to the parking lot, he'll have the advantage of being alone with the other girl. As the man agrees, Sion leaves, telling him to meet the girl in the parking lot in 30 minutes. 30 minutes later, the man arrives at the parking lot, only to have Sion show up shortly after. The man looks behind, confused, and asks Sion why he's there. Sion smirks and asks if the man doesn't use social media, then warns him that he should have listened to his advice not to be alone, revealing that he is Wolf. Chapter 2. Upon hearing this, the man is both shocked and angry, rushing toward Wolf with the intention of taking his life. However, Wolf remains calm, smirking confidently. The man attempts to kick Wolf, but Wolf predicts the move and easily avoids it. Taking advantage of the situation, he punches the man in the stomach, causing him to stumble. Before the man could regain his composure, Wolf knee kicks the guy in the face, causing him to start bleeding. As the man regains his posture, Wolf stands his ground, observing him carefully. The man gathers his strength and tries to grab Wolf, pushing him back and making him fall to the ground. The man sits on Wolf and grabs him by the collar. Wolf tries to free himself and, in the process, manages to push the man back. As the man loosens his grip and curses at Wolf, Wolf quickly counters by smashing his face with his forehead, causing the man to bleed from his mouth. Wolf kicks the man in the shoulder, pushing him back and causing him to fall to the ground. As the man winces in pain, Wolf stands up and approaches him. Grabbing the man's hair, Wolf kicks him in the face and comments that the man is tougher than he expected. He then pulls out a phone and jokes that it's photo time. He takes a picture of the man, who is now unconscious, while playfully telling him to smile. As he takes the photo, Wolf feels a sharp sensation on his forehead, realizing that the earlier encounter caused a small injury. He stands up, thinking that Mr. Nerd, Sion, might not be happy about the injury. Chapter 3. The next morning, Sion wakes up with a dull pain in his head. Sitting up and holding his forehead, he recalls how he had specifically told Wolf not to get hurt. He heads to the mirror and inspects the injury, blaming Wolf for the pain on his forehead. Wincing in discomfort, he thinks to himself that others might find the injury suspicious. Just then, his mother calls him to have breakfast, and he agrees before heading out to school. As Sion arrives at school, he notices that everyone is discussing the recent defeat of a new guy by Wolf, with conversations buzzing all around him. Sion sits quietly alone on his bench, trying to avoid attention. Just then, a guy named Wusik walks up and pats Sion on the head, calling him a loser while asking what he's doing there. Sion greets him, and Wusik, without missing a beat, reveals that he didn't have breakfast. He then asks Sion if he knows what Wusik likes to eat. Wusik smirks as Sion agrees, but his expression quickly shifts to anger when Sion mentions that class is about to start and suggests he can get the food for Wusik later. Wusik pats Sion angrily on the head and pushes him, insisting that he is hungry and demands Sion to bring the food immediately. He then asks if Sion has forgotten what losers are supposed to do and warns him that he might need a reminder. Sion stands up, apologizing and assuring Wusik that he'll be back with the food in a few moments. Wusik smiles as he watches Sion rush toward the school's snack bar, telling him to hurry so he won't be late for class. Wusik, frustrated, mutters to himself that Sion might have good grades, but he's actually pretty clueless. He then approaches two other guys sitting in the classroom, asking if they feel the same way. The guys, intimidated, nervously agree with Wusik under pressure. While Sion hurries down the hallway to his class, carrying a pack of strawberry milk in one hand and a packet of bread in the other, he hears a voice greet him. Realizing it's Wolf, he tells him to be quiet, reminding him that he already asked him not to communicate while in school. Wolf, however, explains that he's annoyed and asks Sion if he should beat up Wusik for him. Sion, confirming that Wolf is referring to Wusik, listens as Wolf smirks and asks if Sion wants him to do it. Sion dismisses the idea, mentioning that Wusik will recognize him since they're in the same class. Wolf reassures him, saying that no one has recognized him yet, and that the same will happen with Wusik if the job is done in the shadows. As Sion reaches the classroom, he tells Wolf to be quiet and go away. Inside, he sees Wusik laughing and boasting about knocking down Wolf with a single blow. Sion rushes toward him just as Wusik, distracted by Wolf's post, talks to his friend about commenting on the post, suggesting that Wolf should fight him. Wusik confidently laughs, claiming that Wolf will be too scared to fight him. Sion interrupts him and hands over the food. Wusik praises him for being quick in delivering it, but before taking the food, Wusik warns him to obey and not annoy him again next time. Sion agrees, handing him the packet. Wusik then instructs his friend to comment on Wolf's post and challenge him to a fight, just before Sion returns to his seat. As Sion sits, he glares at Wusik while Wolf asks if the next target should be Wusik. As Wolf seeks confirmation, Sion recalls an incident and admits he once liked a girl. He explains that although she lived in a different world, completely separate from his own, he fell for her the moment he saw her. One day, while the others were at PE, Sion stayed behind in the classroom. Standing near Semi-Kang's desk, he picked up her shirt and inhaled its scent, feeling a strange pleasure. Despite living in the same time and space, they were from different worlds, and he knew it would be impossible for them to ever meet. This realization deepened his feelings, and he began to see her as a goddess. However, before Sion could put the shirt down, the door slammed open, startling him. He turned to find Wusik and his friends standing in the doorway. Wusik entered the classroom, asking what Sion was doing alone. As he noticed while approaching, he questioned whether Sion was hiding a girl's uniform behind his back. Despite Sion's denial, they moved closer, smirking and accusing him of being a pervert who snuck in during PE to smell a girl's bra. One of Wusik's friends pointed out the uniform, identifying it as Semi's. Wusik shot Sion an angry look, demanding confirmation that it was indeed Semi's. Terrified, Sion pleaded with Wusik and his friends to stop. Moments later, all the students entered the classroom and began discussing Sion as Wusik shared the news with everyone. Semi glared at Sion, who was naked and blindfolded with a tie and being teased by Wusik and his friends. Embarrassed, Sion cried silently as Wusik continued taking his pictures and made jokes on him. Wusik then paused, turned to Semi, and asked what they should do next, mentioning that Sion had been looking through Semi's clothes while everyone was out for PE. Chapter 4. As Sion trembled in fear and embarrassment, Semi looked at him and commanded Wusik to stop. Wusik glanced at Semi in surprise and awkwardly explained that they had seen Sion handling Semi's clothes in class. Semi slammed the desk, stood up, and demanded Wusik stop again, her anger evident. She locked eyes with Wusik, who was intimidated by her glare. Semi, feeling upset, told them to leave. Wusik, frustrated, stood up and clicked his tongue before turning to his friends, instructing them to follow him. As they left the room, Wusik pushed Sion, who was still blindfolded, causing him to stumble and fall. As Sion tried to regain his composure and remove his blindfold, he found Semi standing right beside him. As he stopped crying and looked at Semi, who was staring at him, he began apologizing. Sion stuttered, unsure of what to say, as Semi calmly handed him her underwear. She whispered to him that she used it and that he should hold on to it. Semi then stood up and left the classroom, leaving Sion deep in thought. Moments later, unable to resist his urges, Sion goes to the school bathroom with Semi's underwear. After he finishes and sees what he has done, shame and regret overwhelm him. He hits his head against the wall repeatedly, crying and calling himself worthless. As he sits down in regret, he feels lost and wonders if his life has any meaning or if he will ever find a reason to keep going. The scene shifts to the present night, where Wolf is fighting a high school gang member. The impact of the punch while fighting sends the guy crashing into a nearby bin. Wolf orders him to get up, stating that the fight wouldn't be entertaining if it ended too quickly. Grabbing the guy by the collar, Wolf smirks as the injured opponent, his mouth full of blood from a broken tooth, pleads for a pause. The guy, having earlier boasted about being a better fighter, now admits his defeat. However, Wolf coldly replies that he isn't ready to stop, continuing to punch the guy. A crowd of onlookers begins to gather, watching the escalating fight. As Wolf continues to strike the guy, he suddenly pauses when he overhears two people in the crowd wondering if they should intervene, fearing he might seriously hurt the other person. Wolf drops the guy and turns toward the crowd, demanding to know who had suggested stopping him. The two individuals, realizing they were the ones being overheard, start nervously glancing around, too intimidated to speak up. When no one answers, Wolf declares firmly that no one in the world can tell him what to do. He looks up at the sky and shouts that he will never back down from anyone who challenges him. Wolf begins to leave the area, aggressively commanding the crowd to move aside and let him pass. As he walks away, two guys standing at a distance notice him and comment that he'll soon learn a lesson for standing out too much. One asks his friend if he should confront Wolf, but the friend advises against it, saying Wolf will be taught a lesson soon enough regardless. As Wolf continues walking, he starts pushing the air, lost in thoughts of Sion. He shouts for Wusik to be brought to him, and everyone around stares at him in confusion. Still thinking of Sion, Wolf demands Wusik, declaring that he won't calm down until he defeats him. Recalling how it all began, Wolf confides in Sion, explaining that if he doesn't defeat Wusik, his life at school will continue to be a mess. Wolf asks Sion if he wants to live his life like that forever. Sion grows upset as Wolf urges him to stop dwelling on it and defeat Wusik. While pushing the air in frustration and thinking of Sion, Wolf shouts, demanding an answer. The people around him stare at him in confusion. As Sion hesitantly agrees, Wolf becomes pleased and responds that he needed to hear it from Sion. He reassures him that this is the only way they'll get through life, adding that there's no reason to live if it's not the path they choose. Chapter 5. In a dimly lit warehouse, a crowd is cheering wildly for a fighter named Demon, who is facing off against an opponent. The opponent, with blood on his mouth, shouts in frustration and charges at Demon. Demon skillfully dodges the attack and counters with a punch to his opponent's neck. As the opponent tries to gather his strength and swings angrily, he finds that Demon easily avoids his every move. From the first-floor balcony, two spectators watch the fight. One of them, clearly bored, yawns and comments to his friend Kevin that Demon's comeback is far less exciting than expected. He pulls out his phone and starts scrolling through social media, where he comes across a post from someone named Wolf. Curious, he asks Kevin if there are any new challengers recently. Meanwhile, Demon continues to block his opponent's attacks. The opponent, growing increasingly desperate, declares that his next punch will be impossible to block and rushes at Demon. However, Demon effortlessly dodges the blow and delivers a powerful punch to his opponent's face, sending him to the ground. The bored spectator, now energized, cheers loudly and points out to Kevin that Wolf has a new target this week. Kevin, intrigued but skeptical, asks why his friend Rian seems so interested in Wolf, adding that Wolf is just an ordinary high schooler. Rian smirks and casually replies that there's no particular reason, but admits he hasn't seen anyone as crazy as Wolf. He hints that there's something about Wolf he wants to figure out. As the match concludes, the referee announces Demon as the winner of that night's pounding club fight, and the crowd erupts in applause. The next day at Sion's school, Wusik practices boxing with his friend, who holds his palms out as targets, smirking playfully. As Wusik demonstrates how to take down an opponent, he suddenly punches his friend in the stomach and advises him to aim for the body during a fight. His friend groans in pain, complaining about the unexpected hit. Wusik just shrugs, explaining that he did it on purpose because practicing without real impact doesn't feel realistic. Frustrated, he complains that he can't train properly this way. Then, with a sly grin, Wusik turns towards Sion and comments that their class conveniently has a human punching bag. He calls out to Sion, ordering him to come over. Sion hesitates for a moment and turns to confirm if they're talking to him. Wusik nods and explains that he's feeling stressed and needs to throw some punches to blow off steam. He asks Sion with a mocking tone if he'd be happy to help him relieve his stress. Sion awkwardly stands up, reluctantly agreeing, knowing full well that refusing Wusik isn't an option. Before Sion can approach Wusik, one of Wusik's gang members rushes in from the hallway, opening the door and shouting his name. Wusik turns around at the sound, seeing his friend panting and leaning against the door. Wusik asks what's wrong, and his friend shows him his phone, pointing to the screen. He reveals that Wolf has uploaded a new post, announcing that Wusik will be his next target. Chapter 6. As Wusik looks at the photo closely, he becomes angry, wondering if Wolf is out of his mind. His friend agrees, pointing out that Wolf had updated Wusik's picture and name the previous day, revealing that Wusik is now the next target. Wusik scans the comments, seeing people excited about the idea of him getting beaten up. He smirks awkwardly, trying to hide his fear. Wusik claims that it's a good thing and adds that it's a great opportunity to show everyone who he really is. However, Semi suddenly shouts in frustration, telling Wusik to be quiet. Wusik, startled, turns to see her standing up and glaring at him. She commands him to stop being so loud and approaches him, revealing that she is actually trying to study. Wusik gets nervous as Semi glares directly into his eyes. She comments, saying she knows he's scared after being posted by Wolf. Wusik denies it, but Semi asks if he shouldn't be out looking for Wolf instead of talking about it in school. With certainty, Semi suggests that Wolf is probably waiting for Wusik outside the school. She then takes her leave, asking Wusik if he agrees with her. As Semi walks out of the class, Wusik gets angry and mutters to himself that she thinks she's invincible just because she's Ju's girlfriend. He curses under his breath and grabs his bag, insisting that he isn't scared of Wolf at all. Slipping the bag over his shoulder, Wusik claims that he'll show Semi that he isn't afraid. In a burst of frustration, he slams the door behind him. His friends rush toward him, trying to stop him, but Wusik ignores them and storms out of the classroom. As they all leave, Sion sits back down at his desk. By chance, his eyes fall on Semi's notebook, which is filled with random scribbles. Just then, Sion hears Wolf's voice, commanding him to follow Wusik and saying that this is their only chance. Wolf doubts that Sion is uncertain about taking his revenge and tries to convince him by reminding him that the only reason he's still alive is because of Wolf. Wolf leans toward Sion, urging him to follow Wusik and promising to crush him that night. Sion soon decides to leave the class and approaches the door. As he reaches for the handle, Semi enters from the other side. Seeing her, Sion feels awkward and looks down at the floor. When Sion tries to leave, Semi stops him and asks if he can teach her some math later. Sion, nervously, asks if she's referring to him, and Semi confirms. Sion asks again if she's really going to study math, and Semi leans forward, angrily asking if a girl like her isn't qualified to study. Sion awkwardly disagrees, quickly clarifying that he didn't mean it that way. Semi starts to leave, still angry, telling him to forget what she said. As Sion watches her leave, Wolf's voice commands him again to go and follow Wusik. Hearing Wolf's voice, Sion flinches. Wolf asks if Sion really wants to teach Semi math, and Sion stutters while denying it. Wolf tells him to forget about it and follow Wusik, promising to put an end to everything that night. Chapter 7. While Wusik is wandering the streets, searching for Wolf, he glances at people walking by but finds nothing but disappointment, unaware of Wolf's appearance. As he continues walking, he suddenly hears a voice saying that they've found him. Wusik stops in his tracks, hearing someone else say that they never thought they would find him. He turns around and sees his friends fighting with each other. He feels a sense of relief, realizing that it wasn't Wolf who had addressed him. As his friends continue to argue, Wusik becomes angry and orders them to stop fighting on the street. In a fit of frustration, he grabs one of his friend's collars, just as Rian, who happens to be passing by, catches their attention. As Rian wonders if they're fighting, he looks at Wusik, who angrily pushes his friend away, causing them to flee. Rian takes out his phone and realizes that it's the same guy who was posted by Wolf. He casually slurps his drink, smirking as he notices it's Wusik. Wusik starts to walk away, but then Rian notices a boy wearing a mask, looking around as if searching for someone. He gets excited, thinking it might be Wolf. He decides to follow, finding the situation interesting and playfully wondering if he has time to grab popcorn before the fight starts. As Wolf gets too close to Wusik, Sion advises him to keep a safe distance to avoid being caught. However, Wolf isn't interested in mercy and replies that he doesn't care if Wusik loses his life that day. Wolf continues to follow Wusik, and Sion warns him to turn down a nearby lane, pointing out that it's a narrow pathway with no crowd, unlike the busy street they're currently walking on. He doubts that Wusik might recognize Wolf during the fight, but Wolf ignores Sion's advice and dashes toward Wusik from behind. Rian, watching from a distance, is shocked. He thought that Wolf only fought face-to-face. As Wolf quickly approaches Wusik, Sion orders him to stop. But Wolf, remembering past incidents with Sion, calls out to Wusik. Just as Wusik looks back at Wolf, he kicks him in the back, causing Wusik to stumble and crash into a bench outside a restaurant. Chapter 8. Watching this, Rian is shocked and wonders what is wrong with Wolf. As Wusik tries to get up, confused about who kicked him, Wolf kicks him in the face, causing him to bleed. Wusik curses at Wolf, but Wolf places his foot on Wusik's face and starts kicking him. Wusik tries to crawl away, shouting for help, but Wolf rushes toward him and forcefully kicks him in the face, causing him to slip. Wolf angrily glares at Wusik, removes his mask, and curses before sitting on top of Wusik. As he sits on Wusik, who is lying on the ground, Wolf pulls his hair back, causing Wusik to cry out in pain. Wolf begins punching Wusik in the face, intending to take his life. While Wolf continues mercilessly punching Wusik, the crowd begins taking out their phones to record the incident. Sion notices and advises Wolf to put his mask back on, realizing that the crowd has started filming. However, Wolf ignores Sion and keeps punching Wusik. As Rian watches Wolf grab a chair and angrily throw it at Wusik, he becomes furious. Sion advises Wolf to stop, but Wolf ignores him and angrily looks around for more objects to use against Wusik. Spotting a bench, Wolf approaches it, grabs it, and lifts it above his head. Just as he prepares to smash the bench down on Wusik, Rian appears out of nowhere and kicks the bench away, leaving Wolf in shock. Wolf angrily glares at Rian and demands to know who he is. Rian casually explains that he got upset watching Wolf attack Wusik from behind. He adds that he got angry seeing Wolf continue to hurt a guy who is already unconscious. Rian glares at Wolf, asking if he intends to take Wusik's life. Wolf, unhinged and furious, claims that he does intend to take Wusik's life and warns Rian that he will lose his own life too if he tries to stop him. However, Rian remains unafraid and tells Wolf that he's different from what he thought. He explains that he initially saw Wolf as a fighter, but now realizes that Wolf is just crazy, not a true fighter. Rian turns around and begins to walk away, stating that Wolf can do whatever he wants because he doesn't care at all. Before leaving the area, he encounters a guy from the crowd who is filming the incident and advises him to call the police instead of recording the video, warning that Wusik might actually lose his life. Wolf suddenly turns to Rian and charges at him, angrily ordering him to stop. Rian looks back at Wolf, who is attempting to punch him. He easily dodges the punch and counters with a hit to Wolf's stomach. He doesn't stop there and lands another punch to the side of Wolf's stomach. As Wolf grunts in pain, Rian prepares to punch him in the chin but stops. He advises Wolf to choose his opponents more wisely next time, warning him that he won't let him off the hook next time. Wolf becomes enraged as Rian reveals that what Wolf is doing isn't a game. He adds that there are real games out there, far more dangerous, and Wolf isn't aware of them. As Rian starts walking away, Wolf falls to the ground and angrily commands him to stop. He yells at Rian, trying to catch his attention. Rian glances back at Wolf and is shocked to see him still struggling to get up after being beaten. Despite his difficulty standing, Wolf continuously demands that Rian stop. Chapter 9. Soon enough, Wolf falls to the ground, exhausted and unable to continue fighting. Rian sighs in relief, watching as Wolf gives up. The next day, Sion goes to school despite the pain in his stomach from last night's fight. As he walks through the school gate, he clutches his stomach, realizing that the pain is too intense for him to bear. When he reaches the classroom, he overhears his classmates talking about the incident from the previous night. As he listens to students murmuring about the leaked video, he is shocked to learn that the fight between Wusik and Wolf was already made public. Sion pulls out his phone to check and stares at the screen, confirming that it is indeed the video of Wusik and Wolf's fight. He plays the video and is shocked to see how Wolf attacked Wusik from behind. As he scrolls through the comments, Sion is stunned by the amount of hate directed at Wolf. The students continue discussing the video, and Sion soon overhears that the matter has been reported to the police. Sion soon calms himself down, telling himself that there's nothing to worry about since no one will recognize him, considering how poor the video quality was. However, even though he created his account using an email from a foreign website, he still feels a bit scared. He reassures himself, thinking that everything will be fine as long as they don't recognize him. He glances behind him in the classroom and sees the students still discussing the incident. Feeling uneasy, he quickly turns his head forward. Moments later, the teacher announces that Wusik has been hospitalized due to an unfortunate incident that occurred the previous night. Although the incident took place outside the school, the teacher explains that it is still the school's responsibility to take care of its students. He adds that the police investigation is underway and asks the students to come forward with any information about the person Woo-sik met yesterday. He requests that anyone who knows the identity of the attacker share it privately. After that, Seyoon was feeling sick due to the stress on him. This made him go to the toilet and vomit. His alter ego, Wolf, was not impressed by his gross behavior and called him out for it. Seyoon proceeds to blame it all on Wolf, because he is the reason why the police are hunting him down. This seemingly angers Wolf, who grabs a hold of Seyoon by the collar and makes it clear to him that Seyoon and Wolf are indeed the same people. Hence, they are in it together. Seyoon says that Wolf came into existence in the first place because of Woo-sik. Now that Woo-sik has been taken care of, Wolf should just step back, as Seyoon no longer requires help from him. This makes Wolf laugh, as he explains that the person who brought Wolf into existence is Seyoon himself. He further goes on to explain how he came into the existence because Seyoon doesn't want to quit living, and he wanted to live on. Because of that, Wolf had to step in and take over his life to settle things. And now he is being ungrateful and saying that he doesn't want Wolf's help anymore. However, he should know that Wolf won't be going anywhere unless Seyoon changes himself. So, as it stands now, he will be staying. Wolf then pulls up Seyoon's shirt and shows him the bruises on his abdomen. He tells Seyoon that this is the time for them to go after the one who put the bruises on him. Seyoon opposes to that, saying that he doesn't want to involve himself in any fights. However, Wolf says that he does want to fight, and that is why Wolf exists. After this, Wolf is the one who walks out of the toilet. The next morning, Seyoon wakes up with multiple bruises on his face and body. He realizes that he must have gotten into another fight with a stranger yesterday. His inner self, the Wolf Manhwa, is getting more and more violent by the day and wants to fight all the time. Seyoon goes to school, and there he sees a battered-up Woo-sik, who has bandages and scars all over his face. The people of the class were talking about Woo-sik's condition and how they had seen him getting beat up on the internet. The constant chatter about him and the glare of the classmates was too much for Woo-sik, who snapped and confronted them, asking them why they were looking at him. One of the people looking on was Seyoon, who gets scared off by Woo-sik and apologizes to him. Woo-sik grinds his teeth as he vows to take revenge on the person who made him like this. Meanwhile, Seyoon is glad that neither Woo-sik nor did the police doubted him to be the potential gang hunter Wolf. After all, it makes sense that they don't see him as the gang hunter because he is a lifelong loser. That being said, Seyoon is still worried about Manhwa and the problems that are caused by him. Seyoon can only be himself for about 6 hours every day. For the final 2 hours of his tenure, Manhwa wakes up, and the two of them jointly share the same conscience. Once the time is up, Manhwa takes over the body entirely and starts doing his thing. Lately, it is getting harder and harder to control Manhwa. He has totally gone rogue and is doing whatever he wants. When Manhwa is doing his thing, Seyoon's conscience is still awake, but he is able to do anything and watches on regretfully. After the class is over, Seyoon goes to the toilet again. Distressed, he wonders just what he did to have awakened such a monster inside him, as he slowly turns into Manhwa. After turning into Manhwa, he goes to the same area where the blonde guy had beaten him up. He starts looking for Ri-yun vehemently. He searches everywhere, until he finds Ri-yun sitting inside a restaurant. Manhwa doesn't waste any time and directly goes after Ri-yun. He enters the place and sees that Ri-yun was nowhere to be seen. He notices a door slamming down and understands that Ri-yun might have escaped from there. Manhwa gave chase and called out Ri-yun for hiding. Ri-yun denies, saying that he isn't hiding. Manhwa notices him as he expresses his satisfaction in finding Ri-yun, as he had been looking for him for a week straight. Angered, he charged at Ri-yun at full speed, but Ri-yun was unbothered. Ri-yun manages to catch him flush in the midsection with a side kick, leaving him breathless. Ri-yun called out Manhwa for being dumb, saying that he was dumb for expecting something else other than getting beat up when he finds him. After all, Ri-yun had warned Manhwa previously, saying that if he messed with him again, he was going to teach Manhwa a lesson. That being said, he isn't in the mood to fight, so he decides to let this one go. However, as Ri-yun is leaving, a recovering Min-hwan ends up taunting him. This angers Ri-yun, as he turns around and kicks Min-hwan's leg, dropping him. Once he is down, Ri-yun was about to finish off Min-hwan with a roundhouse kick to the head, but he notices something and pulls back from the kick. Ri-yun was shocked to see that Min-hwan didn't even flinch from the kick coming his way. Even top-tier boxers close their eyes when a direct hit comes their way. So Min-hwan's action makes Ri-yun wonder just what kind of a background he has. Min-hwan gets back up, as he asks Ri-yun if that was all he had in the tank. Ri-yun's friend, Kevin, asked him if Min-hwan was Ri-yun who had disappointed him previously. If so, why was he holding back and not finishing the job? Kevin asks if he should do it for him, but Ri-yun stops him and tells him that he is now interested in Min-hwan. Soon, Ri-yun gets into stance and agrees to fight Min-hwan. Min-hwan gets ready, but Seyun's voice from the inside tells him that this guy is way above the level of them, and that there was no way he could win against him. Min-hwan, being the personality that he was, tells Seyun to shut up. What was he expecting of Min-hwan? To quit and become a loser like him? Meanwhile, Ri-yun asks Min-hwan why he wasn't coming to fight. Did he get scared by him all of a sudden? Min-hwan gets angered by this and charges towards Ri-yun at full speed. Ri-yun kept his calm and hit Min-hwan with a straight jab. Min-hwan ignores the blow and goes to attack Ri-yun again, who nimbly sidesteps and catches Min-hwan's punch. He then grabbed a hold of Min-hwan and hit him with a knee to the gut. This subdues Min-hwan, as he starts bleeding from the nose as well as having the wind knocked out of him. Seyun's voice requests Min-hwan to stop, as this was a losing battle. Min-hwan refused, instead asking Seyun to make a plan, as he is the smarter. He goes to attack Ri-yun again and gets hit with a right hook to the face for his efforts. Min-hwan threatens Seyun to figure out something, or else he would keep destroying his body. Seyun notices the footwork of Ri-yun and immediately deduces that it's that of a boxer who aces his fights with quick movements. Min-hwan asks Seyun what he should do at this point. Ri-yun sees Min-hwan talking and asks if he still wants to continue. He praises his fearlessness, but it's really a detriment here. Seyun finally speaks up, asking Min-hwan to take on Ri-yun and get closer to him, as he is a striker, and strikers aren't exactly the best fighters in close distance. Min-hwan gets ready to fight according to Seyun's suggestion. Seeing this, Ri-yun is amused, as he didn't expect Min-hwan to take this approach this late into the fight. As instructed, Min-hwan dashes inwards to close the distance between him and Ri-yun. Ri-yun was taken aback by it, but his superior speed and nimble reflexes allowed him to get out of the way. Having Min-hwan in a critical position, Ri-yun strikes Min-hwan in the face with a knee strike. However, this was going just according to Min-hwan and Seyun's plan, as Seyun instructed him to grab a hold right then. Min-hwan does just that, and this shocks Ri-yun. As Min-hwan pushes him, Ri-yun tries his best to break his bear hug by hitting Min-hwan's rib cage with punches. Despite that, Min-hwan stayed firm and loudly asked Seyun what he should do next. Seyun was unsure on what to say, as he didn't have an answer. Ri-yun wonders what Min-hwan was blabbering about. However, Min-hwan went on and demanded Seyun to think up something, to which Seyun had no idea. Ri-yun was confused and kind of creeped out, as he realized that Min-hwan was talking to someone who wasn't there. As Min-hwan was about to berserk, Kevin steps in and hits Min-hwan in the back of the neck with a karate-style chop. This manages to knock Min-hwan out and calm down the situation. Kevin tells them it's enough for now and that they should stop. Ri-yun was annoyed by Kevin intervening and told him that he shouldn't have done so. Kevin thinks he absolutely needed to do that, as he didn't know what his friend was doing with an amateur. This lights up Ri-yun, as he asks Kevin if he also saw how interesting Min-hwan is. Just then, Min-hwan gets his consciousness back, as he tries to crawl his way back up. Seeing this, Ri-yun proceeds to go to him and sit on his back. This angers Min-hwan further, as Ri-yun praises him for his ability to take hits. However, he also points out how he should pick his opponents wisely instead of going in blindly. Min-hwan was understandably pissed off and tried to show resistance, but Ri-yun grabbed his head to suppress him. Ri-yun then tells him that if Min-hwan is really so eager to fight him, then he can meet him again. This time at the hard stone located in Sung-sil Park. Saying this, Ri-yun and Kevin leave the scene. Finally being free to move, the loss finally sinks into Min-hwan, as he yells out in frustration of not being able to take revenge on the guy he wanted to beat up. The next day at school, the teacher was explaining literature to the students, when Seyun was seen wearing a mask. He was not really able to concentrate on his studies, as he was hurt. He was using a mask to conceal his facial scars, while his body was all bruised up and injured. As Seyun recalls the event of the night before, he doubles down on his wanna not fight anymore. His body simply wasn't able to take the toll of these fights anymore. Eventually, Seyun put his head down on the bench from the excruciating pain. The teacher, while taking the class, notices this and immediately calls out Seyun. He says that if Seyun is feeling so sick, he should go back home. Seyun immediately shuts down the proposal, saying that he is good to go. However, something occurs to him, and Seyun quickly goes back and asks the teacher if he could leave, as he has to go to the hospital. The teacher allows him to leave, but tells him to inform other teachers too. The teacher also advises him that while the attendance report is important, what is more important than that is to keep himself healthy. Seyun listens to this and makes his way out, as he looks back at Kang Semi, who is staring a hole through him. Unsettled, Seyun leaves the classroom, as all the other students thought it was unfair that he gets to leave after a few coughs. However, the teacher defended Seyun, saying that if they think it's unfair, they should also become good students like him. Seyun gets out of the school building, as he thinks about how Min-hwan takes control as the day gets darker. He understands that Min-hwan will surely go back and try to take on Ri-yun again. This was going to be hard for him, and so he decides that before Min-hwan can intervene, he will be going to Ri-yun to pay a visit himself. Following this, Seyun makes his way to the area. He glances around the surroundings to look for the place, until he ends up finding Hard Stone Club. After finding it, he is a bit taken aback by the fact that it's a nightclub. Despite that, he has an objective in mind, so he goes inside anyway. Inside the place, Ri-yun was at the DJ stand, playing some freaky music, while Kevin was mopping up the floor diligently. Kevin, understandably, was annoyed by Ri-yun's nonchalant behavior towards helping him and playing music, so he threw a rag in his direction. This makes Ri-yun flinch, as he didn't see this coming. Confused and annoyed, Ri-yun questioned what Kevin was doing and what was that for. Kevin said that it should be him asking that question, as Ri-yun was doing nothing, when he should be doing his best to help Kevin open up for the day. Ri-yun was instead more interested in messing around. Ri-yun gets annoyed and explains that he was actually trying out the playlist for tonight's performance. However, Kevin doesn't buy that and insists that Ri-yun was messing around. Ri-yun gets offended by this and asks Kevin if he is trying to push his buttons. Kevin, not backing down, asks Ri-yun what he was going to do about it. Ri-yun says that they must have become too nice around each other after the incident 5 years ago. However, it seems like Kevin doesn't like that and wants to get some knuckle sandwich as he was crossing the line. Kevin clarifies to Ri-yun that if he tries to do any of that with him, Kevin will choke the life out of him. This was seemingly the final nail in the coffin for Ri-yun, as an irate him decides to settle it once and for all. Ri-yun wastes no time in getting into position and throwing a roundhouse kick to Kevin's head. Being just as raged up, Kevin charged forward, capturing Ri-yun's kick due to the closure of distance, while simultaneously getting a grip of his shirt. This put Ri-yun in an unwanted position, so Kevin just used a basic leg sweep to take out Ri-yun's other leg and slam him down to the ground. Following this, Kevin points out to a grounded Ri-yun that he still throws head kicks when agitated. Just at that very moment, Seyun had made his way to the door, and the first thing he saw was Kevin on top of Ri-yun. This makes for a very uncomfortable moment for all three of them. After everything calms down, Ri-yun makes Seyun sit down as they start conversing. Ri-yun asks Seyun why he was there, because it was obvious that he didn't come here to have a drink or dance. After all, he is just a high school student. Seyun explains that it was Ri-yun himself who had told Seyun to pay him a visit. Ri-yun is confused by this statement, as he doesn't recall calling any kid to meet him. Seyun finally takes his mask off and reveals the severe scars and bruises that were inflicted on him by Ri-yun. Concerned, Ri-yun attends to Seyun, asking him who had done this to him. While he was looking at the scars, Ri-yun pulls up Seyun's bangs to understand that Seyun is the gang member Hunter Wolf. He can't believe it. Seyun then proceeds to confirm it, saying he is indeed the wolf. Ri-yun expresses his disbelief of the situation. Seyun was claiming to be the wolf Manhwa, but he was also claiming to be himself, who is a nerdy wimp. Ri-yun asks if he has split personality and keeps flip-flopping between identities. Seyun says that is indeed the case, and that Manhwa will be appearing in about 2 hours. Ri-yun states that he wouldn't be believing this at all if he didn't see it, but now that he has seen it, it's hard not to believe in what Seyun was saying. Kevin speaks up, saying that if Seyun is suffering from multiple personality disorder, then it's a serious issue and he should go to a doctor. Ri-yun agrees with that and says that he should be doing that instead of coming to them. Seyun explains that he can't go to the doctor, because if his split personality problem gets disclosed, his life will be in deep trouble. Everyone will be coming for him. Even if that somehow doesn't happen, the people that Manhwa fought were gang members, and they'll definitely be coming for him. Furthermore, ever since the video clip of Manhwa beating up Woo-sik went viral, police and the school are actively investigating the situation. Ri-yun crushes his can of beer as he tells Seyun to keep this hidden forever, which confuses him even more as to why Seyun had come to them and disclosed his secret, when he should keep it hidden. Seyun explains that it is because Ri-yun isn't immature like all the other guys Manhwa had fought. Ri-yun is on a whole different level, and fighting with him was like fighting a real professional fighter. And so, Seyun has come to visit Ri-yun because he wants a favor. As Ri-yun listens attentively, Seyun elaborates on the topic, saying that Manhwa is a persistent brat who will be following Ri-yun until he gets his win back. He won't stop until he wins, and if Ri-yun were to beat Manhwa up every day, that would only destroy Seyun's body. Ri-yun understands the situation and questions Seyun, asking if he wants him to run away from the fight or admit defeat. Seyun says that Ri-yun can somehow look to avoid fighting Manhwa or do something that doesn't get his body beaten up. Ri-yun replies asking what if he doesn't want to do that. This stuns Seyun. Ri-yun goes on adding that he never runs away from a fight. He isn't the kind of person to run away from someone who wants to fight him. He has never done so, nor is he looking forward to doing it anytime soon, which is why he won't be doing any favors to Seyun. Because even if he doesn't fight Manhwa, he will be looking to fight someone else on the street and cause more trouble, which is why Ri-yun has decided to beat the ever-living heck out of Manhwa until he learns his lesson. This puts Seyun in distress. Ri-yun notices that and says that if Seyun doesn't like the sound of that, then he should beat him in the fight and stop it. Following this, Seyun leaves the place. As he thinks of what Ri-yun told him, he told him that he will be going out of town for 15 days. They close the club every Wednesday, so Seyun should meet him on Wednesday. Not only that, Seyun also recalls how Ri-yun threatened to beat up his body, because there is no guarantee on what will fix his issue anyway. Being taken over by stress, Seyun goes to Sung Sil Park and sits down on a bench. As he is there, a recently awakened Manhwa berates Seyun for doing what he has done. He can't believe that Seyun has gone and done something like that. Seyun explains that he did it because he knows that Manhwa can never win against Ri-yun. Manhwa doesn't care about that. He can just use a knife or something to stab Ri-yun to get the win he seeks. Seyun points out that this is exactly the reason why he went there to make peace, because he is sure that if he lets Manhwa do his thing, Manhwa will make Seyun a criminal. Pissed off, Manhwa grabs Seyun's throat, choking him while asking what he is supposed to do in this situation. An uncomfortable Seyun squeaks out that he will help Manhwa get stronger. Manhwa lets go after hearing this. Seyun gathers himself and elaborates how they need to get stronger to beat Ri-yun. So, he will be studying fighting techniques to put that into Manhwa's conscience. Whereas, Min Hwan will be put in charge of training the physics body for the fight. Min Hwan laughs out in joy as he expresses how this is what he had wanted all along. He wanted for this to happen because he knew that if the two of them worked on their strengths and worked together, they were going to be stronger than ever. It is at that moment when Seyoon realizes that his body is no longer his own property, and that to protect himself, he needs to become way more stronger than he is at the moment. Later on, Seyoon sits down on his desk, ready to study all the books he has brought about martial arts technique. The books are about various techniques, starting from Hapkido to full-on mixed martial arts. Seyoon emphasizes on the importance of learning these skills, as he simulates a fight with Ri-yun in his head. He understands fully that Ri-yun was in no way going to go easy on him, and that he is an extremely skillful fighter. In his simulation, Ri-yun throws a head kick, as Seyoon thinks that even if he can't take him on physically, he needs to outmaneuver him. However, just the imaginary visual of getting kicked by Ri-yun is so scary to Seyoon that he falls down from his chair in fear of the guy. Min Hwan sees this taking place, and he can't help but feel shameful seeing Seyoon in this state. He calls him a coward for being so scared. Seyoon tries to describe why he got scared, because he can't imagine taking a head kick from Ri-yun. However, Min Hwan tells him to shut up and not think about getting beat up in general. They need to think about winning, that's as plain and simple as it gets. Following this, Seyoon goes outside and shows his alter ego a professional mixed martial arts fight. Min Hwan watches the fight and can't help but find it amusing. He questions if the fight in question is called dirty boxing, and if there are any finishing moves like wrestling. Seyoon once again adds how he thinks there is no way for them to win against someone as good as Ri-yun. Min Hwan asks what they should do then. Run away from him? Seyoon thinks that is their best bet to survive, but that being said, they need to get better as an alternative. Just like the video he showed to Min Hwan, they need to be technical in their approach in blocking the punches and kicks, and closing the distance. Most normal people get scared or flinch when a strike is thrown their way, but Min Hwan is not an ordinary person. He doesn't fear anything coming from Ri-yun, so it's not going to be a spot of bother for them. However, what will be a bother for them is a lack of stamina, which is why Seyoon is sure that Ri-yun will try to fight a long-distance fight with Min Hwan. To keep Ri-yun close to them, they need to train their muscles. In a fight where one tries to maintain distance, the only way someone can hold them close is by being the stronger guy, which is why their top priority for now should be to develop their strength and stamina. Min Hwan thinks this assignment is quite easy, and he is ready to take it on. To improve his muscle and stamina, he decides to start working out right away by going on a run. After a long run, he starts doing push-up. While he manages to do them, he starts feeling the limitations of the body. Seyoon's voice tells him something he already knows, that the body is too weak. Min Hwan doesn't want to listen to that, and goes on anyway, until he ends up being unable to do more. Seyoon warns him, saying that if he overworks the body, it won't be good for him, as it will make sure that Seyoon stays glued to the bed. However, Min Hwan doesn't want to hear that. He blames Seyoon for not training his body previously. Before, he goes on to declare that he doesn't care if Seyoon ends up in the bed. There is only 15 days to work on the body, and he will make sure that he becomes strong enough to take Ri-yun on. Saying this, Min Hwan goes back to his workout routine. The next day, the teacher was once again taking a class on literature, while Seyoon was sleeping on his bench. The teacher immediately scolds him and tells him to wake up, berating him for sleeping in the first place. After all, they were going to have exams in the near future. Seyoon immediately comes back to his senses and realizes it wasn't just him, and that others had also fallen asleep due to the teacher's beautiful voice. However, Seyoon takes this as a notice and stays awake. He realizes how he has been reading more books about martial arts technique than actual books that would help him in his studies. While he is at it, Min Hwan is training their physical body relentlessly to make it as strong as possible. At least, since getting a goal, Min Hwan has stayed calm and out of battle. However, this makes Seyoon wonder if they have the slight glimmer of a chance to pull off a victory over Ri-yun. That might be a pipe dream, but if it comes true, it makes him wonder just how the dynamics between him and Min Hwan will change. After a while, Seyun proceeds to fall asleep again. This time, the teacher notices him and walks up to him. The students around him were asking the teacher to wake up Seyun. However, the teacher decided against it, saying that he should let Seyun sleep, as he must have spent all night studying. The students don't like the partiality and call out the teacher for his behavior. They think he should be more strict, as he had mentioned that they were going to have an exam in less than 100 days. The teacher tells them to mind their own business, as he goes on to state how Seyun has been a brilliant student who was teaching himself. So there's no need for others to meddle in his matters. The students still find it quite dubious though. As the teacher spares Seyun, Kong semi-stares Seyun down. She was at it when she received a message from her boyfriend, Ju. Ju asks Kong semi about her well-being, before informing her that he is off to Seoul, and that he will message her once he gets to his destination. This puts a perplexed look on Semi's face. Meanwhile, on the train aboard were Ri-yun and Kevin. Kevin asks Ri-yun if the guy with the split personality was really going to fight him. Ri-yun reveals that he indeed will fight the guy. He says that he would have ignored this matter, but as the guy was constantly bothering him, he is going to take action. Kevin expresses how the guy being able to bother Ri-yun is bothering him more just by being able to do it. Ri-yun asks Kevin if he is going to be there for the fight, but Kevin tells him that he will be having a match of his own and needs to concentrate on that. Ri-yun recalls it and asks Kevin who his opponent is going to be. Kevin tells him that he doesn't have any idea on who it will be, but he hears that the guy will be having his first match in the Pounding Club. This shocks Ri-yun, as he can't believe that the manager is doing something as outrageous as having a newbie fight Kevin. Kevin, however, thinks that the manager has a reason for doing this. After all, the manager is no spring chicken. Meanwhile, Min Hwan slicked his hair back and was getting ready for the fateful day. He checked out all his scars and bruises and fires himself up, as the day he was waiting for so eagerly had finally come. Next up, we see a car arriving at the Jiun flower shop, and from there comes out Kevin, looking like he means business. Kevin gets inside the flower shop and is met by a buff florist inside. The florist asks Kevin if he has a particular flower in mind. Kevin tells him that he is looking for yellow lilies. This was actually the password for him to get inside the secret fight club, so the buff guy gets up and leads Kevin to the door. Kevin says that he knows the theme is flowers, but yellow lilies is almost too weird to be a password, and asks who picked it. The buff guy admits to picking it himself. Kevin tells him it's all good though, because he likes yellow lilies himself. Following this, the guy asks Kevin about his fight, and how he heard that the manager himself has picked Kevin's new opponent. The prospect of this fight is interesting to the guy, but he does wish Kevin luck, and tells him to not get hurt. Kevin appreciates the gesture and smiles at the guy before entering the secret fight club room. Inside the fight club room, the atmosphere is bustling, with delinquents being everywhere one could look at. And each and everyone there was excited about what they were going to see, and they were talking about it. Eventually, the man of the moment, Kevin, enters the room and grabs everyone's attention as he stands alone in the center of the fight club. Meanwhile, at the hard stone bar, Min Hwan arrives, in hopes of taking the revenge he was seeking so badly. He walks inside, and eventually makes his way inside the bar. However, Min Hwan looked around to see that the entire place was empty and had no lights. Min Hwan knew Ri-yun was there though, so he told him to come out and settle it. Ri-yun was standing behind him, and he expressed his feelings on how he didn't expect Min Hwan to show up today. Seeing Ri-yun present in person makes Min Hwan smirk, as he got what he wanted. Ri-yun smirked back at him, and let Min Hwan know that he doesn't have a lot of time to deal with people like Min Hwan. So, without further ado, he wants to get the show started. He gestures with his fingers, inviting Min Hwan to charge at him. Min Hwan was serious about the fight, so he clenched his fist and got into a proper fighting stance. The scene shifts back to the secret fight club room, where Kevin still stood in wait. After a while, Kevin asked the referee where his opponent was. The referee seemed very unsure himself, but he insinuates that the guy will be there soon. Following this, the guy arrives, and he makes the eyeballs turn towards him from Kevin real quick. People are confused to see the guy, Most didn't even know who he was. After all, they had never seen the guy around the scene before. The referee points towards the new guy and informs Kevin that this guy is his opponent. Kevin has an ambiguous look on his face, but a look that does show his intent. Meanwhile, back to the fight at the Hardstone bar, Ri-yun also assumed his stance and asked Min-hwan why he wasn't coming at him. Si-yoon's inner voice spoke to Min-hwan and told him to not get worked over by the provocative words of Ri-yun. Instead, he should focus on his blows. Min-hwan answers back to him loudly, telling Si-yoon not to nag him. Ri-yun listens to this and puts on a condescending smirk as he smugly asks Min-hwan if he and his alter ego are planning this through between themselves. His look quickly changed to serious as he furrowed his eyebrows before moving into action. Ri-yun launches a rapid punch in a round angle and makes one of Min-hwan's fists move out of the way, creating a bigger gap in his defense. The gap gets only bigger when he uses the same hand in reverse motion to get Ri-yun's other hand away too, making him fully open up his defense. Min-hwan is understandably taken aback by this, as he was left in a vulnerable state. And Ri-yun didn't want to waste an opportunity to exploit it, so he charges in with a cross punch to knock Min-hwan out. However, just then, Si-yoon's inner voice tells Min-hwan to go at him, and go at him immediately. Min-hwan obliges and suddenly dashes forward into Ri-yun, confusing him. Back in the secret fight club, as Kevin stands face to face with his opponent, the guy named Storm walks in. Storm comes in and states that the two battalions do look more than ready to exchange blows. He then asks Kevin how he has been feeling lately, to which Kevin says that he is doing okay. Storm is glad to know that, as he is really looking forward to today's fight, which is shaping up to be quite the interesting one for him. This is when Kevin speaks up. Storm listens as Kevin mentions how he hasn't lost a single fight in this fight club over the last few years. Storm tells him that he is aware of it, but Kevin questions that if he does know about it, then why did he choose an unknown, when it is supposed to be a battle of the best? Storm tells him to relax and assures him that this fight will be one of the best ones in recent times. Storm then apologizes for making the other guy wait and introduces him to Kevin. The guy is called Viper, and he is known to be just as fierce and vicious as a snake. Viper looks at Kevin with a smug look before nodding, and Kevin makes sure to nod back to greet him. Following this, Storm goes over to take a seat, as he tells the two fighters that it'll be their fault if he doesn't enjoy today's fight. Back to the fight at the Hardstone bar, Min-hwan dashes towards Ri-yun in hopes of getting in a double leg takedown. However, despite being shocked, Ri-yun manages to smartly step back to avoid the grab, after which Ri-yun questions just what was Min-hwan even trying. He should at least look at the position and situation before charging in for a takedown. The taunts from Ri-yun pisses Min-hwan off, and he was about to snap at him, but Si-yoon's voice stops him. Si-yoon once again tells him to not be the aggressor in the fight and wait for Ri-yun to attack first. Ri-yun, on the other hand, noticed that Min-hwan was holding back and waiting for him. He points out how he finds him holding back to be funny and understands that he definitely does have a strategy. So he wants to see what Min-hwan can do. Suddenly, Ri-yun starts hopping and doing footwork in front of Min-hwan, who is taken aback by Ri-yun's action. Ri-yun asks Min-hwan what he will be doing now, while showing off his agility by seamlessly switching sides with minimal effort. Ri-yun smirks, as he realizes that Min-hwan wasn't going to come at him no matter how much he tried. Si-yoon's voice was doing its best to try and tell Min-hwan to hold on and wait for the right opportunity. Just then, Ri-yun quickly transitions his body weight to his front leg and twists his body to get maximum impact on his punch. Si-yoon gives Min-hwan the order to go, but he is too late and the punch connects against Min-hwan's nose and draws blood. Ri-yun found this to be quite amusing and questioned if getting punched in the face was part of the strategy. Min-hwan was mad. He wiped off blood from his nose, but stuck with the plan as intended. Min-hwan gets back up, and Ri-yun wastes no time in loading up and throwing a kick to Min-hwan's upper thighs with maximum torque. Min-hwan was hurt, but he held in. Ri-yun states that it is boring and that Min-hwan isn't the same crazy guy he knew. He also asked him if he was holding back because of what Si-yoon told him. If so, he wanted him to ditch that and fight in his own style. Min Hwan becomes more intense and puts up his fighting stance again. Ri-yun likes it and invites the old Min Hwan to come out, while leading in with a left-handed straight punch. This is when Siyun's voice gives Min Hwan the command to go at Ri-yun, and this time Min Hwan manages to duck underneath the punch and charge again, shocking Ri-yun as a result of that. Min Hwan slides underneath and manages to grab a hold of Ri-yun's left hand. On the follow-up, Min Hwan moves in closer and tries to hit him with an elbow, but Ri-yun manages to block it with his right hand. This, however, left Ri-yun with both of his hands occupied with something, whereas Min Hwan had a free hand, and so he tries to use it by going underneath the clinch that they were in. He tries to hit Ri-yun with an uppercut, but even in close quarters and a tussle, Ri-yun's reflexes prove to be superior as he dodges the blow. The tussle becomes more ugly as the two guys try to do something to land a significant blow. This time, Min Hwan tries to hit from a sideways angle, but his hook and smash hybrid also ends up missing thanks to Ri-yun's movement. Ri-yun, realizing the pickle he was in, tried to get in some action himself. He realized that his right arm was free enough for him to utilize it, and so he hit Min Hwan with a solid forearm smash on the side of his skull. However, Min Hwan manages to tank it, putting Ri-yun in even more trouble. As the two try to wrestle into getting a better clinch, Ri-yun comes up on top. He manages to grab a hold of Min Hwan's loose outfit, while he maneuvered his other hand to come around and managed to grab a hold of Min Hwan's neck. Using the new position to his advantage, Ri-yun out-muscles Min Hwan and forcefully pulls his head down. He masterfully follows it up with a knee strike to the head by dragging in Min Hwan's head into his knee. The knee strike was devastating and made Min Hwan bleed out of his mouth. It also manages to create some distance. The distance was enough for Ri-yun to turn his heel enough to land a picture-perfect roundhouse kick to Min Hwan's head. The kick knocks out Min Hwan on his feet and was about to send him down on the floor in an uncontrolled manner. Ri-yun realizes that it could prove fatal for Min Hwan to hit the concrete floor head first. So, he dived in right away to catch Min Hwan's head from hitting the floor. He manages to save Min Hwan from irreversible damage. But it proves costly for himself as he ends up spraining his wrist on the impact of hitting the floor. Ri-yun looks back at Min Hwan to see that he has been knocked out cold. He tries to wake him up, but to no avail. He regrets this, as now he had to take care of the nuisance that is Min Hwan. Suddenly, Ri-yun feels something wrong with his body and clutches his chest. He huffs for breath as his chest pain gets worse. He wonders if doing this much will become too much for someone like him. After a while, Min Hwan holds his head and wakes up groggily. Ri-yun, who was resting on a chair nearby, notices this and puts up two of his fingers in front of Min Hwan, asking him how many fingers were there to check if he's concussed. Min Hwan softly replies that there are two. His tone of reply makes it clear to Ri-yun that it's actually Siyun and not Min Hwan. Siyun confirms this by saying that Min Hwan is still probably knocked out. Ri-yun is glad to know that. He then says that from what it looks like Siyun isn't really that hurt, so it's fine. He tells him to go home and take care of himself now that he is awake, and informs Siyun that he has to go somewhere important himself, so it's time for him to leave. However, Siyun told him to wait. Ri-yun stopped and asked him what he wanted to say in confusion. Siyun, however, was panicking and asked Ri-yun just what is he supposed to do now. Ri-yun was confused by his line of questioning and asked Siyun why he was asking that question to him anyway. He tells Siyun to go to the hospital or something. Ri-yun then proceeds to walk away and tells Siyun to leave as well. He walked out of the bar and was heading towards his car, but Siyun chased him to the outside. Ri-yun mentioned that he was getting late and that he needed to hurry. But once inside the car, Ri-yun sees that Siyun had also entered his car. Ri-yun was understandably annoyed and questioned just what Siyun was even doing. Siyun, scared, told Ri-yun that Min Hwan is going to be waking up soon, and he will cause havoc when he does. He is scared of that, so he wants to stay besides Ri-yun for that reason. He begs Ri-yun to let him stay with him. Ri-yun sighs, before telling Siyun to do whatever he wants, and starts the car. As they drive off, the scene once again changes to the special fight club. There, Storm stood between the audience that came there to see the fight. He clapped to grab their attention and asked all of his deer-pounding club members how they've been lately. He does add that it must have been tough for them to live under the rules set by the ordinary society. They probably had to pretend to be something that they weren't and had to pretend to be someone's friend. His humorous way of talking makes everyone laugh out loud. Storm proceeds to declare that tonight, they were going to see real men fight. Guys like Kevin and Viper are going to show them just what a real fight between real men looks like. The scene shifts back to Ri-yun and Seyun, who were in the car. A sense of awkwardness surrounded the situation, but Ri-yun spoke up to break the ice. He mentions how he was surprised by how the fight went down. Seyun is a bit taken aback by this, and Ri-yun continues on by saying it was just a normal dirty boxing fight, but he was still caught off guard multiple times during the fight. He asks Seyun if all of that was his plan. Seyun nervously admits that it was his strategy indeed. He follows it up by elaborating his reason behind the strategy. As Min Hwan isn't usually the type to get scared by their opponent. He would never back away from anyone or anything, which is why he decided to take that trait of his and use it to create a deception. Ri-yun commends him for this, saying his strategy was quite a good one. However, he does mention that non-trained individuals usually have a hard time getting accuracy with their punches when the opponent is that close to them. This worked as a detriment for them. Even though the first uppercut that Min Hwan missed was very menacing, he still lacked accuracy. But if he was better at punching people, they could have actually defeated Ri-yun. Seyun is left in disbelief by this. However, Ri-yun doubles down and adds that the fact that he was caught off guard by them is a big enough deal by itself. Ri-yun then looks at the clock to see that it was already 7 p.m. and gets annoyed thinking about how the fight must have already started. As he starts driving faster, a nervous Seyun questions where Ri-yun is even going. In his reply, Ri-yun lets Seyun know that it's the place where real men can be real men. The scene shifts to the pounding fight club, where both Kevin and Viper are getting ready for their fight. We learn that it's a place where there are no rules, and a place where the strongest survive. If one doesn't like someone, they'll just finish them. That's what the place is like, a place where there are no restrictions to what a man can do. After they're both done preparing, the referee calls for the start of the fight. Kevin, imposing as always, gets into his bear-esque stance, whereas Viper had moved into a crab stance. He started motioning his jabbing arm like Thomas Hitman Hearns. Kevin notices this and realizes that his guess was true. Viper is nothing more than an arrogant rookie. He is using a boxing stance that specializes in getting you points and not knockouts. Viper starts off the fight's action by moving inwards and throwing whipping jabs like the aforementioned Hitman. However, the punches aren't very strong, and Kevin blocks them with his guard. It boosts Kevin's ego, as he thinks about how such weak punches wouldn't even leave a scratch on him. So, he gets ready to show him the difference between a boxing fight and a real fight. Immediately after, Kevin jumps in with his grappling motion, trying to take down Viper. However, Viper is quick to step away, and the nonchalant nature in which Kevin jumped in left him open. So, Kevin landed a solid jab to his face. This shakes up Kevin, and he gets even more shooked up when Viper lands a clean uppercut on him. This creates the first real moment of the fight, as Kevin steps back to regroup. The crowd enjoys this, and so does Viper, as he cockily motions for Kevin to get back in range. Meanwhile, Storm watched the fight living up to his hopes. On the outside, Ri-yun and Seyun arrive at the Yun flower shop, and Seyun asks if this is the fight club. Ri-yun says yes, but he had no time to wait, as he wondered if the fight was over already. Ri-yun quickly rushed in, barely uttered the password to the guy in charge, before running inside. Once inside the pounding fight club, he pushed his way inside the crowd. Seyun followed suit, but he was intimidated by the atmosphere there. He didn't know why, but Seyun's heart thumped like crazy, as he wondered just what was wrong with this place. Suddenly, he started feeling like his body was acting up. Meanwhile, Viper had managed to land another great hit on Kevin, making him bleed from the mouth, before stepping away. Ri-yun got to see how Kevin was left huffing, and got shocked by it. He couldn't believe what was happening. Just then, he hears a voice from behind, going on about how this place was crazy. The voice was none other than Manhwa's, who had woken up, and boy, was he loving the fight club. Meanwhile, Kevin was feeling frustrated, because he was losing the fight. He was finding no way to get close to Viper. Just then, Viper takes a big step forward, and connects flush with a jab on Kevin's face, staggering him and subsequently stepping out of his range. Kevin was beyond annoyed, and he tried to neutralize Viper's outboxing by trying to step in and throw a wild punch of his own. However, Viper easily manages to dodge it. Ri-yun understands that Viper had Kevin's exact reach figured out, so Kevin needs to find his own place. Meanwhile, Viper manages to land another clear jab to Kevin's face. Seeing this fight going this way, Ri-yun realizes that if this keeps continuing, even a sturdy person like Kevin would falter. He also comes to understand that Kevin was huffing for breath because of his nose bleeding from the hits. Kevin tries to lead in again, this time trying to hit a combo, but Viper manages to slip past all of them. Ri-yun is irritated by this, as Viper didn't particularly charge in aggressively for his hits, nor is he in the range for a takedown. This was as big a mismatch as it could have been for Kevin, and he must be hating each and every moment of it, as he cares a lot about how poised his fights look. Just then, Ri-yun gets distracted by Manhwa and his usual extremist yapping mindset. Suddenly, he remembers about the strategy Manhwa used when fighting with him. So, he yells out to Kevin, telling him not to worry about fighting with strikes and try to close the distance and be a bit dirty. As Kevin is distracted by Ri-yun, Viper slides in and tries to hit Kevin with a strong uppercut. However, Kevin manages to step away, and the uppercut merely grazes him. Viper tauntingly tells Kevin to focus on the fight in hand. However, Ri-yun continued on with his instructions, telling Kevin to close the distance. He states that fighting clean and gracefully doesn't matter if he loses, and he needs to win this. Kevin tells him he understands. This makes Viper smirk, as he tells Kevin that he is making a mistake if he thinks of Viper as just someone who can dodge blows, because he can do a lot more things. Kevin tries to catch Viper with a punch again, but Viper dodges it with ease and slides underneath to grab Kevin's face. This leaves everyone a bit confused, but Viper mentions that there are no rules in this place, before digging his nails in and scratching Kevin, introducing the dirty aspect of his style of fighting. This obviously hurts Kevin a lot and leaves him blinded for a bit. Viper takes full advantage of this by throwing fists at Kevin rapidly. He hits him with a proper combination. Ri-yun is worried, as Kevin was wobbling from all the punches being thrown at him. Ri-yun suggested Kevin clinch, but Viper wanted to finish it off, so he threw his best shot at Kevin. However, Kevin suddenly springs back to life and matches Viper's fist with his own. As their punches collide, Viper's hand goes flying back on impact. Kevin wastes no time and tries to follow it up with an uppercut. Viper sees this coming and tries to stop away from the blow, being confident and even mocking Kevin for not being potent enough. However, the punch ends up hitting him on the face anyway, and it catches him good enough to knock him down. Suddenly, the crowd becomes alive and cheers wildly for Kevin. Even Manhwa is entertained by this, and Ri-yun is happy that Kevin got his first hit in. Storm watches this from the top floor, and he was thoroughly impressed. It made him question if Kevin was really the best to do it. A disappointed Viper slowly starts getting back up, and Kevin takes this opportunity to throw some verbal smackdowns. He tells him that there's no telling how a fight would go while the fight is still happening. Just because Viper managed to get in a few hits on him doesn't necessarily mean that he can be cocky. Viper, struggling to stand straight, was annoyed by Kevin's little brothering of him, and in an uncharacteristic move, charges right in towards Kevin. This time, Kevin tries to land a blow on Viper, who was trying to close the distance. However, Viper blocks the punch and swings his arm in an outward motion to capture it under him. He then pushes forward harder, in hopes of tackling down Kevin. However, Kevin simply brushes it off as nothing, telling Viper that such a tackle won't work on him. However, Viper seemingly steps on the accelerator, as he musters every bit of strength he could to somehow push back the much stronger Kevin. He pushes him hard enough to take him and slam him back first onto one of the walls. Viper then follows it up by taking a big bite of Kevin's ear, channeling his inner Iron Mike Tyson.